This isn't who you are. There are better tools. You're going to quit everything you're doing. You're going to find a natural way and you're going to share that.
Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration, leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Todd Kole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
Welcome back to the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. I'm going to actually say this is Master Coach 1 of the Condor approach, because Miranda Vires is here. And not only is she a psychedelic informed facilitator, integration coach, she leads epic trips to Costa Rica and Ecuador, and we're going to talk all about it. But she started with Tan I before it was called the Condor approach, before the Condor coach certification, even before the psychedelic space program in Austin, Texas, which was a 3-day event. Even before that, even before COVID, like, she has been on the evolution. So I say that Miranda is Condor Coach 1. So Miranda, welcome to the show today. I'm excited to share a bit about your story and how you even got into this and all the magic and impact you're creating now as a result. So let's start with, how do you explain who Miranda is today?
Oh, just a human like everybody else, walking this beautiful path of being a human and finding as much ease in it as I can. And in the process of that, I support other humans who are walking the same path, creating safe spaces for rebel souls and disruptors who are ready to break free of constructs and shame and guilt and traumas that may be holding them back the same way they were holding me back in my own path. And the same way that you and Ta supported me and begin in the Condor approach, or meet me in the mirror, showed me how to move through these things. And that's really the journey that I'm on. In addition to that, or even before that, I'll say I'm a mom of 3 boys and married a long time and living that life. I homeschool my kids, and just part of what I've been able to do through with these tools, right? Breaking the
Yes.
constructs and creating
Making new
something different
ones.
out of it. Yeah, and
Totally.
making new ones. That's it. Absolutely. So yeah, that's just a human on the path like everybody else with a big mission in the process.
Well, and I think that's the key thing, right? Is because one of the things that I love is you do always remind the people you're working with, you're a human that has worked through some tools and you've learned some things and you're there to share it, and reminding people not to place you on a pedestal. I have more tools. That doesn't make me better or more spiritual or more woke or whatever the terminology is. It's that you come to me and say, I want to build a house. And you're like, oh, well, that's handy because I have wood and nails. If we start there, let's talk about what we could build with wood and nails, versus like, I have all of the answers to everything that you want in your life. And so I want to talk a bit about how you ended up here. Like, how did you personally even end up in exploring plant medicine, psychedelics? And then we'll get into the amazing things that you're doing in your epic Facebook group and all the other things. But I want to bring a little context of, like, how did you even get on the path to begin with?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for asking. Um, like most humans, I've collected many experiences in my life that stuck, not all of them pleasant. And we're not taught as kids how to process different traumas. And right. So collected things through the years, found psychedelics in my teens. So I was 14 when I utilized LSD for the first time. And in hindsight, I knew then that there was something to that. I'd go to school on a quarter hit of acid. And in my mind, I was being this rebel. In it now knowing what I know, I was essentially, I can't say micro dosing, but I was mini dosing my way through high school, and I was more engaged and I was getting good grades. And so it made sense. And through the years, as indoctrination came out around the negative effects of that, I stepped away from those tools, of course. And fast forward and navigated different traumas as an adult. And in my mid 30s, found myself on a handful of pharmaceuticals, high dose of Norcos, on muscle relaxers, whatever flavor of the antidepressant of the month was, Xanax, and an extremely high dose of Adderall altogether daily. And that concoction left me in a space where I was very broken. I was very full of rage. I was inflicting a lot of trauma and abuse on the people that I love the most. And I could see that. And I had done all the things I thought we were supposed to do in that space. I've gone to the doctor, I went to the therapist, and I was just broken. I wasn't, those things wouldn't fix me. And I got to a point where I felt like the best thing I could do for my kids would be to remove myself from the planet. And not because I was giving up, but because I don't know how to make it better for them. And I didn't want them to navigate what I knew I was inflicting on them. And moments away from making that happen, it was really nothing short of divine intervention, of a voice asking me when the last time I was without pharmaceuticals. So when the last time my body was actually functioning the way our human body was meant to function, to which I didn't know the answer to. The invitation was essentially, hey, this isn't how your body works. This isn't you. This isn't who you are. There are better tools. You're going to quit everything you're doing. You're going to find a natural way and you're going to share that. And I took that very literal. I quit everything I was on completely cold turkey, which ensured that shit got far worse before it got better for about 30 to 45 days. I searched everywhere for a place that I could commit myself that insurance would cover because money was was an obstacle, where they wouldn't try to put more pharmaceuticals in me. And would allow me to do what at that point what I instinctively knew I needed to do, which was to get back to the roots of some foundational practices. And I'm with myself, and I never found that place, of course. And so I knew I was I the story I told myself was that I was on my own, and I began my journey of finding holistic healing. I started with mindful self-compassion. Instinctively, I knew that if I didn't learn to love myself and I didn't open that space up, that whatever I did really wasn't going to matter if I didn't believe that I was actually worthy of healing. So I'm so grateful that I started my journey there. I moved into doing some neuro course, so some brain training for ADHD symptoms, which is where I learned how to breathe correctly, which I was just appalled that, what do you mean I'm even breathing wrong, right? That poor lady who had to
Right.
tell me that one. Yeah, I lost it. I lost it on her. The poor lady. I started a nutrition program. I 12 weeks, I just hired a nutrition coach and a personal trainer. And 2 weeks into that program, I wanted to live for the first time, and I couldn't remember how long. And I finished up that program. That day, I remember specifically, I woke up and it was like, whoa, this is cool. And then at the same time, like so pissed off as it hit me that just changing what I ate for 2 weeks shifted my mental space to that point. Now, it was still partly cloudy skies. There was still something missing. Clearly, there's still a lot of work to do, but there was progress being made. And that's so I finished that program, and then I enrolled in the Institute of Transformational Nutrition and became a nutrition specialist. I'm still knowing there was more. Came across the word ayahuasca doing some research for a friend, and had a full body instant response. I knew, like, it was like that. That's what I'm looking for. And at this point, I didn't even know that there were that it was offered. In my mind, I'm getting on an airplane and I'm gonna go walk the jungle and I'm just gonna figure out how to make this happen, right? Because the Amazon's not big.
Or dangerous
So
where everything wants to kill
I
you.
know, totally. So I was very grateful to find that there were places that were open to offering this, and I utilized the beautiful skill of hyper focusing for about 3 to 4 months. And literally for 4 to 8 hours a day, I was researching the science behind psychedelics because a lot of the science was already out there. And this was in 2016, 2017. Started researching centers, found one that I felt comfortable with and safe with, and went through their process. And in April of 2017, I jumped on an airplane, flew down to Colombia, of all places, to sit with a shaman with jaguar teeth around his neck to drink ayahuasca, right? As a mom of 3 boys,
Like,
and
how
society.
did people respond to that when you're like, so I'm going to Colombia? Because Colombia is not exactly known for being the safest place for a woman to travel alone.
It was a thing. It was a thing. I got to the point where I had to tell people I wasn't, I'm not, I see you and I'm not holding your fear, because I knew I was going to be safe. I had done enough research that I knew I was going to be safe. The conversation with my husband was probably the best, because of course he was like, you are. And it was like, because I framed it as a question out of courtesy. And
Wasn't really a question, but I framed it as a question initially to see what happened.
which is exactly what I told him. I was like, let me reframe that. This is what I'm doing, and I'm over the age of 18, and this is not a permission slip. I'm not asking for a permission slip. It would be really nice if you support me in this. and I'm doing it anyways because many people likely resonate with the fact when you're called to that medicine, you're called to that medicine and you know it. And I knew with all of my heart that was going to change my life. Kind of like when I met you and Ta, I came home after our first weekend and I told my husband, I'm not really sure how, but these humans are going to be a big part of our future. And here we are,
And
right?
here we are.
But it was like the same kind of feeling of knowing, oh no, this is not something that I'm walking away from. But I did. I had people called me. My mother-in-law in particular was pretty brutal on that aspect of it. People were I was a bad mom. I was a drug addict, just leaving the country, leaving my kids at home. My kids were still young, so there was a lot of judgment on me being a bad mom, and so it was a thing. And but then I came home from that retreat, and it's not a light switch change, of course. It's but over the course of the 4 to 6 weeks after, I noticed shifts. The anger was not so present. I was able to listen. I was able to hear. I was able to start moving through. I believe what happened in that first retreat is a lot of the generational and ancestral stuff that I didn't need to know what it was cleared.
Mhm.
So it wasn't this any like epiphany of this is it. But as I came home, it was clear that I was a changed person. I'm gonna reframe that. It was clear that I was stepping more into myself as I was moving along. About 8 months later, I started feeling a backtrack because expansions and contractions and it wasn't aware of that process then, which is part of the reason why the Condor approach is so beautiful. It prepares us for the entire process of it, of life really, but especially journey expansions and contractions. I started coming into that contraction space and panicked and found my way back to Peru. And my thought on that was, well, I need to do more medicine this time. So I went down for 2 weeks and did 6 ceremonies over rather than three. This is where I learned why integration is so important because I didn't have it. And I came home with 6 new, what I call laundry baskets of things. It's like I come home with a laundry basket and now it's time to start holding the things up, figuring out what aligns, what stuff fits, what do I want to keep, what do I keep in the closet, you know? And I didn't know what to do with any of that. I had no idea what to do with that. And there was no integration support offered. So I re-traumatized. I can say this now. I wouldn't have admitted that then or even acknowledged it or even known it then. Now I can look back and say I re-traumatized myself in a lot of needless ways trying to do it, which is why I'm so passionate about doing what I do now for people who it resonates with. So yeah, that was powerful. That was the journey though, where I was shown that retreat. I was shown like, hey, listen, you're not going to be a nutrition coach, which is great because I actually sucked as a nutrition coach. It's easier to get people to change their religion than it is to change their diet.
That
100%.
that part, yep. As a former personal trainer, fitness coach, I can attest to this.
Total. So I was so excited. And listen, you're going to hold space for people with psilocybin. This is going to be the way of this was in 2018, and the message was in 5 years. This is going to be the way of mental health in the U.S. It's safe, it's effective, it's accessible. Go home and prepare for that. And so I did. I went home, and as I'm part of my integration, as I've got all these laundry baskets, I began my own relationship on a healing level with psilocybin. So 2018, 2019, I was working with psilocybin. And I think around that time is when I hooked up with you and taught and learned about some other medicines and integration tools and things like that. I continue my work with Yahe still. That's still a medicine I continue to work with, and ayahuasca. That's my main plant teacher, and it's the one that supports me in my continued growth to support others with psilocybin. I still work with psilocybin on a personal level too to maintain that relationship. In addition to my personal experience with the medicine, I knew that it wasn't going to be enough for me to just come home and do my own journeys, right? There were certain things that I felt were important to hold space, and so I started diving into the trainings of how do we hold safe containers? How do we understand the nervous system? How do I help somebody come down and offer them antidepressants safely in conjunction with their prescribing doctor? How do I support an integration? How do I hold a safe medicine container? So I started doing multiple different trainings. At this point, I had already had the nutrition certification, life coaching, meditation. I was collecting certifications at that point, trying to find the thing. And then it was more about, okay, now what do I need to hold this space? And so two biggest programs that I've taken, of course, with it, number one is the Condor approach, right? And that's what gave me the confidence to be able to step out in 2021 to hold safe containers and to know that I was holding safe containers confidently, right? And continuing to be a part of that program and getting the tools and all of that has been pivotal in my experience. In addition to that, I'm a part of a trauma informed training 3 years into that one, 2 years into that one as well, because I do think it's really important for at least for the clients that I hold space for me to make sure that there's trauma and psychological safety. As people are coming into the container, it's really important for me to make sure that I can hold the space for what's coming up without re-traumatizing anybody. And that process supports me in first and foremost in the intake process, which part of the four end of the Condor approach, the intake process. That trauma program really supported me in the conjunction of those two is now how do I find in this portion of the process the clients that are a good fit for me to work with that I can support and what clients might it be more beneficial to either refer out to somebody else or what clients maybe plant medicine isn't safe for, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so those were the 2 big programs, but a lot of standalone programs. So essentially, that's how I found myself here, and to put that a little bit of a shorter format, I fell on my face, I picked myself up, I brushed myself off, I figured out how to move through it, and now I'm here walking with other people as they're doing it too, hopefully making it bringing a little bit more ease, comfort, and community, right? Because doing it alone
Hmm.
really sucked for me too, and so creating that community as other people do it as well.
That community piece is so important. Like the Condor approach and the Condor coach training wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for the people. And when I think about when trainings solely teach online, you can get some community through virtual containers. But this is why I've been so committed to the in person piece, because whether it's communities for your ceremonies or communities where you're learning, you are projecting and reflecting yourself and others onto each other, which can be very beneficial when you have context, when you have honesty, because there's parts of myself I can't see without you. You reflect parts back to me that help me see. And when I'm around people that I've learned to trust their feedback and their perspectives, then they can say, hey, I'm seeing this. And this doesn't seem in alignment with who you say you're striving to be. It's not even that I'm judging whether it's good or bad, but you said this, and this just isn't really aligning for me. So I can actually get support around me to be like bumpers for the bowling alley so that I can keep going in the direction that I want to be going. And so when we have such a beautiful, like you just described, in getting quote unquote the right, and I say the right is in for that for a particular situation, the ones that are most nourishing for each other. It's what's in the soil of the process we're going to guide people through. When that's done with intention, there is even the master teacher, substance, mushroom, whatever, is only a part of the intelligence in the room. It's everyone. They're bringing their ancestors, their life experience. It creates this like third entity, third mind, because everyone brings out different parts of each other in reflection in the room. And it's just something that's been important and powerful. And there's places to do work alone, and you absolutely must do work at times with people. So, in like in community, so many of our woundings come from family and community, from other people, right? So, it's like some parts have to be healed with community and other people. So, in your current model, and I guess even to lead into the current model, so before you came to a retreat with me and Ta, and you did our first program, and I would say first program that turned into the Condor approach. We've had lots of other programs, but this was the first one that was really about getting to know yourself. And back then, even this podcast was called Mentor in the Mirror. And for us, because we're like, you are your mentor, you are your teacher, you are your coach, but you can have people around to illuminate things. So what was going on for you when you like first started, I would say when it was Meet Me in the Mirror program that we did? What was it about it for you at that point that kind of either shifted or started to learn more about integration and holding space for yourself? Like what was going on to where that started to, because I remember conversations we had then. You were talking about wanting to guide people, but to you, it felt so far away as a possibility. It was like, I know it's coming, but I can't even imagine a reality where that's actually what I'm doing full time. So walk me through where you were at that point, and then we're just going to like time block through. How did you get from that to running a Facebook group that's got probably, I don't know what, 2,000 people in it? I don't actually know how many people are in there.
Like that. Yeah,
Something like
yeah,
that.
great question. Yeah, so when I joined the Meet Me in the Mirror program, I again, you said it, I was at a point where I know this is what I want to do. I knew you guys were doing it, so I knew there were things to be learned in that. And but that's not why I joined the program at that point. I was trying to do it by myself. You guys, that was the first group that I jumped into for integration. So After at this point, I had a couple of retreats and lots of mushroom journeys, and I didn't even know what integration really was at that point in time, let alone how to do it in a community. And so that's where I was at. I was really looking for the community piece, really looking for connection, which, and then also I was getting to know myself still. I was still, I'm still getting to know myself. That was really, I'm still getting to
Same.
know myself. Yeah. I was, I think I was still beginning to learn that I was getting to know myself. I was still beginning to okay, this is the process, right? I almost in hindsight, as I'm saying is there's almost still blinders on of not really knowing what the process looked like. But the community piece was huge. And I want to jump on that and piggyback on what you were saying about the Condor approach too, because I didn't so a lot of people, I was looking for community in that particular piece. A lot of people in this space aren't necessarily looking for community, they're looking for different things. So maybe somebody's coming to the Condor approach as an example for facilitation training or for integration training, right? But you get there and you realize that piece that you thought you wanted, that you needed or whatever, is just like 30% of actually what you take away from the space, right? And that's what also happened in that Meet Me in the Mirror container, right? It was like I thought I was there just for community. First of all, the program cracked me right open, as it did many other people. So it was
Many, like everyone. We also learned too much too fast of showing people themselves was maybe not the best move.
we all survived, and I'd
Yeah.
let you know where. So there's that, but it was for me. It was beautiful. It was brutal, as our beautiful friend JR would say. It's brutal, and I got so much more out of that, and that did lead me into a path of continuing to learn more about the medicines and things like that. And I'll never forget there was a bit of COVID happened, and I was doing my thing and you guys were doing your thing, and we had talked in a while, and then I just jumped in my Gmail one night and I opened it up, and it was you going live, and I laughed out loud. I'm like, screw it, I'm invited. Let's just jump in and see what she's doing, right? And I jump on, and it wasn't even the first call. It was like you had a couple of calls for the space camp program, and you were in
I
the
mean, I
middle of
don't even
asking.
remember. Tell me.
I would love to go back and find the recording of it because it's hilarious. Because I have no idea what this call is about, mind you, no clue why I'm on this call, and you're asking a question of, so let's just go around and see what brought you to this space. And then you called on me first, and I'm like, I honestly, I have no idea. And you talked about how, like, sometimes we're called and we're in these spaces and we don't know why. And that was a space camp program to which clearly I was in, to which clearly, and you guys launched the Condor approach, which I wasn't even done talking about it. And I'm over there. Okay, cool. How do we make this happen? This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. And how do we make it happen? And so, multiple rounds of the Condor approach. And 2021, I think after the second round, I was on a flight home and and I'd been talking about psychedelics since I started doing them in 2017. I
Mhm.
was public about it. And on the way home, somebody out of the blue messaged me and asked about facilitation. And I was like, yeah, I can help you with that. And that's, well, yes, there was that. And then just before that, during the program, I had made a post in a Facebook group just asking, like, hey, who'd be interested in this? And the next thing you know, there were hundreds of comments. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm launching my business now, right? Like, I guess I'm doing this thing. And so I did. And I would love to sit and say that I had all this planning and stuff done. I didn't. I took one out of your book and I made it up as I went. It was like, I do a consultation call and I'd listen to people and ask them, what does support look like for you? And the first person was like, well, I'd love to just do a little bit first and then maybe do the bigger one and then have some support. I was like, awesome, that's my program. That's exactly what I do. Which is how I created my expansive space experience, right? Retreats. What would a retreat look like for you? And I took that into consideration and also what I would want on a retreat. And I was like, awesome, that's what my retreats look like. Microdosing program, same thing. And I just listened to what the people who are coming to me felt that how support would feel good for them, and that's what I created. And so I continued to then, and of course, there were some setbacks along the way. I lost my Facebook group, which I originally built the business on, and 14 years of memories, and that was reported, and it wasn't even a warning. It was just like bye bye. And so essentially started from that space, and I continue to do trainings throughout still. So I'm throughout this process, I'm always in some type of a training or personal development thing that supports not only me and myself. I continue my work for my personal self as well. And I think that's really important too, is just to continue to walk the walk and be real in it. And
Mm.
that's how I ended up through the years. It was like I did one retreat. I was like, ooh, I love that. I felt like I should have paid for that. Let's do another one. And
Right.
and then the next year I was like, let's do 4. And then next year I was like, let's do 6. And then next year is interesting. I think there's 6 like before June.
Well, and this is what's so crazy. I remember, I think it was after you completed your first year in like the Condor coaching part. And the thing is, even when you started that program, it was still super clunky because we are rearticulating and shifting and making it clearer or making the where the information is more like you can take it and apply it faster. And that's been us actually spending time taking trainings on how to teach, on how to share things, on how to meet more neurodivergent learning styles, and recognizing that part of what caused conflict, not conflict, but for me and Toss, some things that were a little crunchy is I don't identify as neurodivergent because I'm like, divergent from what? Normal? Fine, call it whatever you want. But that the way that I learn is very different than Ta, who went to university, has like the English training. And so his educational chops and the way he delivers information is great for people that learn that way. For me, it's trauma inducing, freeze states, overwhelm. I can feel stupid, all of these things. Because I didn't graduate from high school. I never got good grades except for the one semester that I went and I smoked weed between every class. I got a 3.7. But I found out about that one too late, got kicked out of 3 high schools, at risk youth, blah, blah, blah. But the gift in that was then how do we start to be more effective in our teaching? So going through these processes and looking at when you first started at Condor versus now and how the trainings are now, and also not over teaching and bringing so many concepts because it never ends. And like you said, for me, there's like this point, and you alluded to it, and I'm going to actually say it because I love how this has been such a great episode, I think, of like the path and the clarity and the way you deliver your process, where it's like at first you realize I'm getting certifications and trainings. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm saying you and me basically because you alluded to it. First, I had to recognize that I was getting trainings and certifications because I felt like I was in a deficit of something. I didn't know enough to keep people safe or connected or do the right thing. So I was like trying to find the right one that would give me what I needed to feel like, okay, I've got this. Once I worked myself through that and recognized that, then it wasn't about that anymore. And I was able to embrace that I love to learn and I will always continue to grow. But that's why we get so many people coming back because they know when they come back to Condor, it's going to be different. It's going to be delivered different. There's deeper layers. Even now, when someone comes to a live event, just the 3-day training, now we give them the videos all ahead of time and say, watch it before you get here so that we're not delivering the kind of like kindergarten level. And I don't, not that it's kindergarten level, but like the simple level 1 of the content. And so I'm hearing you saying that similar thing where it's, well, first you answered the call, and then it was like, well, I'll just put this post. And how often we'll say, well, I'm waiting for God to tell me or source to tell me this is what I meant to do. And there's 900 comments on that post. If that's not God, I don't know what it is like. So walk me through that process for you where it's okay, I answer this call, maybe still having some imposter, some fear, some whatever, but how simple when you just get on the phone and talk to people, you don't need an offer. You don't need to know what you're going to do. You listen and they say, I need to do this. And you go, huh, I can do that. And you don't even have to know how much it's going to cost them yet. You can sit on it and say, let me sit with this. Maybe not sit on it. I can sit with this and see how much time and energy in my ideal world. We might want to do this for 6 months and meet every other week. Or maybe it's one weekend and then I see you in 3 months. However, we structure, we can meet someone individually where they are. And then you don't have to go through all the stress of creating all these offers. And so many online business coaches teach that I'm like, that's nice, but I'm working with individual people, not the masses with a coaching, like just a course.
Yeah, there's so much of that. And I will say I did find that there are a couple of core offers that can be um there. So here's the core offer. I have a core microdose. I support in microdosing, and I support in macrodosing, which includes a mini dose, a macro dose, and 60 days of unlimited integration. Right. And those are in my retreats too. The structure of those stays the same, but I have the ability to do just like what you said and meet people where they are within that structure because not everybody desires the same amount or the same locations or the same doses and all of that. So, people who are starting their business, absolutely. Like to me, if I can give any thoughts on that, would be first of all that if you're looking to hold space, join the Condor approach because it's very beneficial and it will support you in having the confidence to move forward. And I mean that not in a marketing way. I mean that because it legit gave me the confidence to move forward and hold space, right? And the community to know that if something does come up that I need support with, it's there, right? Don't overcomplicate it though. We don't overcomplicating it complicates it. And I started my business in simplicity and I had a few really great years. And then I started complicating things a little bit last year, trying to dive deeper, trying to do different things, started paying attention to what other people were doing as everybody and their brothers offering psychedelics now, right? And trying to mold into what I think people want rather than aligning with what I already know works in my space, right? And things got complicated. And then resimplifying it again, it's holy cow, I just filled 10 spots in retreats in a matter of 2 weeks, right? By getting out of my own head and not complicating it anymore. It's not about us. It's not about me. I can speak for me. It's not about me. And I can speak for you too. It's not about us. Our mission is far bigger than what we're doing. And sometimes we just need to get out of our own way.
Hmm. Well, and that's what's crazy, right? When you think of, I think in 2021, when you first joined the Condor approach, like that first summer anyway, like the first kind of initial launch of it, I think you had said you had helped 7 clients in that year. People that
Yeah.
kind of came to you more, not randomly, but someone that either already knew you, so they were closer to you. And then it was like the 7 months after that, you would help like 70 people, or there was some crazy, it's one of those, I've never really shared it online because to me, it's not even believable. That's like that bro marketing you see where it's Miranda, 10x her, how many people
Oh
she
yeah.
helped.
Totally. It wasn't even number of people. It was like maybe 3 clients, right? And I think it was like $8,000, $7,000, probably where you were getting that number, right?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
So it was like that. And then yes, that first year it was over 70 people. And my first year. So first of all, the investment of the master program was recouped within my first program. So within 6 weeks, I had already recouped the investment of that, which was a bit of it. In that first year and quite frankly every year since I went from a 5-figure business to a 6-figure business, or excuse me, a 4-figure business to a 6-figure business. And I've not every year's been progress. Every year there's been more and more clients. And then that's the number I really look at, right? There's a counting piece of it, but to me it is also that as we were chatting about earlier, like hundreds of people that I've helped at this point in time. And like you shared, it's not even just some hundreds of people, it's everybody's lives that those hundreds of people impact it. And then of course when we look at the indigenous view of things, there's some indigenous views of things that's 7 generations and 7 generations, or both
Each
directions,
direction, yeah, forward
each
and
direction,
backwards.
forward and back, right? So let's take them hundreds, and and that's a massive ripple effect. And that's a ripple effect that began with you and Ta, which began with whoever created your ripple effect. And that's the work we're here to do. And I was not super successful when I was a nutrition coach. And that's where, or I was before this, which is where there was just a handful of clients. But when this is a great thing, a great indicator too of when we step into our purpose, what can happen. Nutrition coaching wasn't like, that wasn't my path. That wasn't my aligned path. That wasn't my soul's purpose. This was. And when I stepped into that, the universe said yes. And here you go, meeting it halfway, of course, and doing the work. Um,
Hmm. I got chills on my whole body because how many times I know for me, no, I don't even know for me how many courses I took, whereas I'd get in there and I'm like there's some good stuff that was still valuable, but it didn't click in. It wasn't like, yes. And so there was the part of me that, yeah, was trying to make up for who I wasn't or trying to validate, but there was also the part that hadn't found it yet. So there was so many stories baked in at the same time that it could get really flooded and confusing to know which one is true, which one's correct. And the answer was all of them. Because once I actually found it, like once I connected with my teachers, then it was like, oh, I thought it was something wrong with me that I wasn't trusting the process all the way. I wasn't completing the program correctly. That's why it didn't work. No, that wasn't the thing. I went to go gather a piece that was pinnacle. I went to gather a piece that's a part of how I've been able to help people, but it wasn't the certification. And even with the Condor Coach program, not everyone that comes to it wants to be a certified coach of it. They feel drawn to it. they come and then it ends up being the community, or they meet one person that they create a partnership, or they run a retreat center and they wanted to come connect with more facilitators that they could host. There's so many layers of it. I'm grateful for every dollar I've ever spent in any course I've done, even
Okay.
if it was to learn to stop giving my power away to business coaches. Because, like you said, last year it got complicated. I like, you were in a flow and I didn't want to interrupt, but I was like, me, last year, literally, I started losing my hair. And I was stuck in the, I need to scale and we need to make Condor bigger and it needs to be 8 figures and blah, blah, blah. And so what happened? We made no money because it was about scaling, not about value we're providing to people's lives. Now, I know what it provides. So it's not like I felt like we were short selling that piece, but it was like, of course it's not working because we're not like everyone else. Stop trying
Yeah.
to be like, because I was watching some of the other integration coach trainings, 300 people, all this stuff. And then people are coming to me that took those trainings saying, I don't feel more equipped to help people. I learned the concepts, but like I learned that through the books and podcasts I already listened to. I don't feel more skilled that if something tricky or sticky comes up, how to hold space. Or if they shut down or they get emotionally flooded. I was just heard to basically say nothing and be neutral and say, what do you need right now, to someone that doesn't know what they need right now. And that was maddening. I was just like, how come I'm paying rent for my apartment on the 19th of the month? I can't even pay my freaking bills. I'm getting testimonial after testimonial of how great Condor is and it's changing people's lives. And it's because we had lost sight of the core thing, which is staying connected to people. Because they said, well, you can't stay in the business like that to scale. You're going to have to pull yourself out of it. Now I'm back to doing one-on-one calls with every person in the program once a quarter, which is still a lot. But guess what's happening? Results and referrals are more up again. And it's so I'm saying this out loud to you, Miranda, so we can remind each other to stop looking in other people's lanes. Just do what we know to do and stay the course.
Yeah, that's valuable feedback for those of us well, all of us are called to something. For those of us who have connected with the calling, and how other people do things is none of our business. And yeah,
Yeah,
especially if what we're doing is working. Like what I was doing was working. What you were doing was working. It wasn't broken. We tried to fix it, and here we are.
And here we
Wiser
are.
for it.
Yes, that part. Oh, Miranda, I feel like this is a great place to bring it in for today. I actually at one point looked in and we were 20 minutes into the conversation and we'd gone so deep so fast. I was all, this is amazing. Cause I love a good like packed 40-minute. Like that delights me when I'm in that kind of section where it's like we get right to the juicy stuff. So tell people a bit now about the types of offers, because I know you have a retreat coming up in Ecuador with Goddess Jocelyn, which my goal is to get down there next year as well. I know you've got things in Costa Rica. You do retreats like all over the world. And like you said, all the time, apparently, because you're 6 retreats just in the first half of next year. Tell people a bit, who are your retreats and trainings for? What would people be trying to do or understand or know about themselves to where they might want to come learn more about what you're offering?
Yeah, my retreats are really open to, I say they're open to all humans. We're open to all humans. And I don't have a specific, hey, I work with this particular client between these age that's working with this particular situation. And I love leaving it open like that because I have men, I have women, I have all types of things. Every type of human comes into space. And when we do that, we learn from each other in a really beautiful way. My retreats tend to be the way that my whole process is moves in a flow, right? So if somebody is looking for deep trauma therapy, we're going to get you in medicine and start asking questions and start pulling off scabs and pulling things up on purpose. That's not the way that I work. We move through the intake process, which of course tills the soil for the medicine, prepares people for the things that may come up. And it prepares me for how I can support safely in that container. I always do a mini dose session to help people drop in lightly to get to know the medicine. I work with a lot of people who are, I would say, probably 70% of my clients are brand new to psilocybin or any type of medicine. So we start with that lower dose, macro dose after that, and then 60 days of integration, right? The working with me is not I don't have this set structure or We're not going to do specific things on specific weeks because I don't know what the medicine's going to bring up for people. So we create the space to work through whatever the medicine does come up. My retreats are referred to as, somebody referred to it at the last retreat as like you hold like family style retreats, assuming that we love everybody in our family, right? Because it does feel like that on multiple retreats. I would say on the majority of my retreats, people come together and wow, it feels like I've known you, all of this whole group, forever. It's they're, I'll say, laid back. So if people want to be in community, you can be in community and we can be talking about whatever comes up. If somebody would desires one-on-one support, I'm always there for that. And I generally have support there that can help with that too when they're open to it. And then if somebody wants to be on their own, that's okay too. Within the medicine space, we all journey together. I try to keep it in a space where people can flow in and out of inside and outside. I always have quiet rooms. So if somebody does desire to be by themselves, or maybe some things are coming up in the group container. So it's really, I'm about flow, a lot about flow. I would say that I'm a really great learning lesson or maybe an opportunity for type A people, right? So they come to my retreats, and for the first day or two, there is some dis-ease of, wait a minute, there's no schedule here. I don't know where to go. This last retreat, the clock was wrong the entire time and nobody cared. Like electricity went out and it was hours off the whole time and nobody cared. But there can be some dis-ease in that in the beginning, right? And so I'm very clear with people ahead of time of this is the way that I flow. And there may be some dis-ease in that in the first couple of days, but what I watch is people completely and utterly relax, and 9.9 of them leave with the mind space of, wow, I needed that, and I'm going to take some of that home with me. So I'm great for people who I'm open and flow, more of a relaxed. I'm right there with you. It's more like a friends retreat. I'm in it with you versus a let's dive into psychotherapy and really pull the things out deep. Those are two different spaces, both very valuable, but the more flow one is me. And then what we do is that's why after 60 offer 60 days of unlimited integration support, because we let the medicine bring up what the medicine's going to bring up. And now we've got the time and space to be able to work through that and integrate through that and to pull up the things to pull up deeper the things that it showed us. So we're letting the medicine determine the intentions in the medicine, determine what comes up. And then I spend the next 60 days working with them on however deep of a level they desire through that part of it.
Hmm. So beautiful. And as someone that's personally worked through with groups and in retreats, if there's any part of someone listening, you're afraid of being seen, there's no way to tell you that's a high possibility of exactly why retreats are such a healing thing. I started doing women's retreats because I craved to heal some of those woundings I'd had with women, friendships. So it's like I have one friend that we joked that thank goodness I didn't get in a fight with her because she tried to rip me out of my car when we were like 16 years old because of what some other people told her. I was surrounded in relationships like that. And that made me very hesitant to be in group retreats because I had been around so many groups of people that weren't safe. And that's exactly why group retreats for me were actually more important first than solo work, actually. I had done a lot of work alone because I'd been on the lone wolf path for quite a while. And I had learned everything I could learn about myself alone. And so, where for some people they benefit to come in and do solo work first to understand where they are, I had a radical self awareness actually. And as another trauma response adaptation to learn how to move in the world according to fit into to chameleon and code switch into whatever was the safest at any time. And to learn how to be authentically me in retreats was there's just no way to even describe it. Just for my nervous system to be able to lean on someone on a couch in a non-sexual, non-confrontational, scary way. Any gender, it's irrelevant. My body did not have the experience of being so close to people as being safe. And for quite a few years, I was able to be able to sit next to someone and not even cuddle, but like link arms and feel comfortable in that. And then after 3 years, I realized it's actually okay that I don't prefer to be touched most of the time. I swung the pendulum a little far that way, swung it a little far that way. Now I feel like I'm in a nice in between of where I love people and some people just I prefer further away from me.
Yeah, it helps us learn our limits though, right? What we do and we
Totally.
don't desire. And that's what I tell people. I'm a huge proponent for group. I do offer one-on-one. It's far more expensive to do one-on-one. And that's in that aspect, that's great for me. I don't try to talk people out of it. but I encourage people to lean into the group experience because it not only one-on-one, if you and I are working one-on-one, you're the teacher, I'm the teacher, you're the student, I'm the student. We have your experiences, my experiences, and that's what we have. But when we get into a group container, we're all the students and we're all the teachers. So now we've just multiplied the amount of wisdom that we can bring from that space. That's in a general aspect, but we can even take that into the medicine space because now we're an integration circle and we're listening to the messages that the medicine brought into everybody's journey. And what I find is there's a little bit of something for everybody and
Hmm.
everybody else's some of the most profound things that I've learned from the medicine came from other people's journey that I learned in integration circle. And if we think that's not the medicine talking to all of us, we're still missing a point, right? Like, and so that's the power of group containers. And I'll have people ask me, do you pick and choose and put people together that are a good fit? No, I leave that to the universe. And you want to know what? There's only been one time where that didn't work out in over 30 retreats at this point in time, right? Like between private groups and my regular retreats. And that one was on me. That was on me not recognizing a diagnosis that was potentially something different, right? And then, of course, diving into my therapist who supports, like, I have somebody who is I collaborate with to support me when things go above and beyond my scope of practice. They did let me know I did everything correctly, and they would have probably missed it too. So there's that. But so there's always the one time, but generally, the universe brings together the right people, and even that was the right
A
situation,
hundred
right?
percent. Well, and that's what I was
Even
gonna
that,
say, right?
yeah,
It
yes, yes,
every time when you recognize that it's all tools and teachings and what are you going to do with it, it's an opportunity for everyone to learn about boundaries and communication and expectation. And it also helps community have conversation of what they want in the space and how they'll handle things in the future if something comes up, because so many of us are already operating out of like basically disappointing everyone because everyone has expectations that they don't communicate. And then that shows up in these spaces. That's the opportunity for us to recognize where we're doing that all the time.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, Miranda, thank you so much for your time. It was so great for me to hear so much of like your story, and I knew a lot of it, but hearing even we haven't had like deeper conversation around how your business especially has been like the last 2 years because you have been now officially running like a full scale business. So for you, for the person listening, let's say that they are where you are in 2021. So maybe they've come to Condor, maybe they haven't, maybe they've taken another program and they're still hesitating. What advice would you give to the person, maybe the Miranda that was right before Condor and you're almost on the path about their ideas about contribution and building a business, helping people?
Yeah, don't complicate it. Get out of your way. Get out of your own way. Figure it out. Figure out what it is that you would do if money wasn't an object, what that would look like. Ask yourself what support would look like if it were you leaning into it and create based from that space. Yeah, get out of your own way. It's not about us. And when we're asking ourselves, who am I to do this? Taking we aren't there for the people that we're there to support. It's who are you not to do this at the end of the day? If you've got some skills, if you've got some life experience that can support somebody else and you're feeling the call to do that, who are you not to lean in and do that?
Hmm. That part, I watched a reel on Instagram like yesterday where that's where what someone said. They were like, if you know that you have the ability and skills to help someone where they are right now, like, how dare you do nothing when it could actually forever change their life? At the last Condor, this woman Amy stood up. It's a testimonial actually, or it's a video on the Condor Instagram page where she came to Condor not as a coach. She came to learn. She wanted to learn some of these things as because she's exploring integration and psychedelics and different healing modalities. And she said she stood up and wanted all of the coaches and facilitators in the room to know we need you out there. People like me are looking for you. And you're like, I exhausted Western medicine after being in the hospital and all these crazy things. So if you need any encouragement, please be brave and continue to show up because we need you. And it was so moving to remember that sometimes we hold back and we're afraid to fully step into it because we're afraid we might hurt someone or we are afraid that we might do it wrong. But we don't realize how many people are being harmed because we are doing nothing.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, assuming you're hearing the call. assuming you're hearing a call to help people. Not everybody is meant to, but if you're hearing that call, then that absolutely 100% that. And I love that. Thank you, Amy, for that validation. And it is powerful information. It's powerful tools, powerful community. Um, yeah, it's been a game changer for me. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Clearly.
Anyone listening, if you still feel like there's things you need to know, maybe you do, right? And the beautiful thing is you can come to the Condor approach and we really help you to see what you do know and where you can step in and be in service and just get in a lane. You don't need to be going across all the lanes. That might be the problem. You're all over the place. Let's get you focused on what you can do, who you can serve right now. I usually tell people if they have trepidation, that's usually a good sign to me. When they feel like they've got it all figured out, that's my first red flag. So if you have trepidation, congratulations. I want to talk to you. So, Miranda, any final words for anyone that maybe they're thinking about coming to the Condor approach and they're concerned about spending the money? Now we have 3 days for $1,000 for people to come experience it. So that's a benefit as well. But what would you say to a person that they're questioning if going this route is the right fit for them?
If you're questioning that, then you're already being called to this approach and to lean in. I can't speak for everybody that's been there, but I would find it I'm just going to go out on a limb and say people don't leave there without learning anything. You're not going to leave empty-handed, even if you choose to not have a business over it or anything like else like that. Your relationships may improve. This stuff's good for us on a personal level, just as good as on a business level. And if you're feeling a call to lean in, even just a little bit of that questions there, just lean in. You're not going to be disappointed. You'll leave with something, and perhaps you'll leave with what the a glimpse of the next step of what to do with it, right? So maybe like you shared, I had no idea what this was going to look like for me. When I leaned into the Condor approach, I had no idea what it was going to look like for me. But as you move forward and you take a step, then the next step aligns, right? So maybe you're just being called to the program in this moment, and the invitation would be to lean into that step, and perhaps the next step will reveal itself once you're there.
Hmm. Thank you. So, how can people get in touch with you, Miranda, if they want to hear more, learn more? What is the most effective way to do that?
Yeah, most effective way is to connect with me on Facebook through my profile, Miranda Vires, or join my Facebook group, Self Love, Self Care, and Psychedelics. Being a one man business show in the moment, my website is not always up to date, but that is theemergingsoul.com. You can find out a bit about me. Services are not always up to date. Retreat dates are not always up to date because choose to prioritize my time with my clients. But Facebook is where you can keep up with what I'm doing. And then also just, I'd like to think that my free content is valuable and can support people on their path as well. So I just would love to invite anybody into that community and hold space and contribute any way they feel called.
Love it. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for tuning in with us. Leave a comment in the show notes or leave a comment in the comments section or the what's what I'm looking reviews. And just like Miranda said, she doesn't prioritize her website. I'm not prioritizing my clothing on today's show. If you loved anything Miranda had to say or you had a big takeaway, leave it in a review, like share so that when people are reading about the show, they can actually see why tune in. I would appreciate it if it was valuable. I know Miranda will appreciate it. So share the podcast if it resonates. Check out her Facebook group. She does share a lot of really valuable stuff. And it's a killer community of folks for you to also start to get some common conversations going and demystify some of this stuff a bit more and get access to not only research, but people's real life experiences. So thank you again, Miranda, so much. And y'all, until next time, be easy, be free.